Usually when you spot a treasure, you check what it is guarded by, check the reward, and then decide if it is worth the time and effort to get it, completely ignoring the flavored text before it. But this text can hide some interesting references about all manner of things. So today I'm going over several treasures and what possible references they hide. Finally, my degree in European history is finally useful. Before we start, there are two disclaimers that I need to point out. The first is that there are way too many treasures to cover all at once. In the files there are a lot of treasures, some with a lot of background, some with none at all. If I feel like it, I might make a follow-up video covering more treasures. Second, there might be treasures that have noteworthy references, but that I simply couldn't find. So please don't be mad about that. On the other hand, not everything has to be a reference. After all, a big pumpkin is just a big pumpkin. Starting off, we have a parchment containing religious indoctrination worth 125 XP, guarded by two marauding hussars. There have been many moments in history where there have been arguments about the correct way to praise the holy ones in the far above. These could be complex arguments like the Trinity of Christianity, or about silly things like being allowed to have long hair while attending church. Both sides of the religious debate would present the reasons why they were right and why the others were wrong, or in some cases even worse than pagans. If these arguments cannot be resolved, it could lead to a split, and no split symbolizes this better than Catholicism and Protestantism. Martin Luther, a German priest in the 16th century, disagreed with the Catholic Church on many fronts, but mostly on indulgences. He wrote the 95 Theses, consisting of 95 propositions to fix the pastoral problems that plagued Christianity. Famously, he nailed these propositions to the doors of All Saints Church in Wittenberg. The Pope at the time, Leo X, was none too pleased with this indoctrination and demanded that he revoke these theses or risk excommunication. This incident led to the split of the Catholic Church. Next up, we have a collection of Gakti garments inspiring your villagers to chop wood 10% faster, guarded by one gunman. A Gakti is a piece of traditional clothing worn by the Sami people in the northern parts of Norway, Sweden and Finland. A more well-known term for them in the English language is Laps or Laplanders. It is made from reindeer skin or wool and adorned with decorations made from silk or silver. This treasure can normally only be found in the Finland map, most likely a reference to the geographical location of the Sami. A fun side note is that the code for this treasure is EU lowercase skogshuggare, the same voice line Swedish settlers use when gathering wood.
Skogshuggare.
It is also a one-time only effect, meaning that the effect does not stack if you pick up multiples of the same treasure. The next treasure we will look at is an exhausted carrier pigeon carrying news worth 90 food, guarded by two gunmen. For a long time, carrier or homing pigeons were used to deliver messages from one place to the other. These pigeons have the ability to always fly back to their home, as they instinctively always remember where that is. Humans use this by attaching messages to the birds and then sending them back home. However, pigeons could only fly one-way routes, so they were shipped to one location in cages, and when a message had to be sent to the place of origin, they would attach a message and send them on their way. With the introduction of the telegraph and radio, their use diminished, but have still seen some use here and there, even as far as today. The exhausted part of the description may be a reference to the phrase, "I am not an early bird or a night owl, I am some form of permanently exhausted pigeon," which is a popular phrase used on the internet. The 90 food part could be a hint to the fact that passenger pigeons were extensively hunted for food. It was a popular delicacy in the eastern United States in the 18th and 19th century. With the use of alcohol-soaked grain, the pigeons became an easy target to be shot down and were afterwards used for culinary purposes. As a result, they were quickly overhunted. Plus, the fact that they only lay one egg at a time meant that they were unable to maintain healthy numbers. On September 1st, 1914, the last passenger pigeon died in the Cincinnati Zoo. Here we have a handbook on German fencing techniques worth 155 XP, guarded by 3 marauding landsknechts. It is hard to pinpoint which book this references exactly, as there were many fencing instruction books in circulation during the Age of Empires 3 time period. Most of these originate from southern Germany. A lot of these, however, mention that the techniques they describe are derived from the work of Johannes Lichtenauer, who was a fencing master in the 14th century. German fencing focused largely on the two-handed longsword and was practiced almost everywhere in the Holy Roman Empire. That was until the late 17th century, when it was mostly taken over by the Darly school of fencing, which more closely resembles the way of fencing still practiced today. The next treasure is Peter Bruegel's painting titled De Boerenbruiloft, worth 85 coin, guarded by 2 marauding musketeers. Peter Bruegel was a Brabantian painter that painted many paintings depicting the lifestyle of farmers. The Boerenbruiloft, or peasant wedding, depicted here, is about the wedding of a bride and a groom accompanied by their families. On the painting you can see that there are 2 musicians. As for food, only the best delicacies in life, bread and soup. Delicious. The painting is on display at the Kunsthistorisches Museum in Vienna. Why specifically this painting was chosen to be referenced in a treasure is unknown. Perhaps it is a favorite of someone on the development team. Now let's talk about a sketch of an almost smiling lady worth 135 XP, guarded by 3 gunmen, for this is a tricky one. For a long time throughout history, paintings of people smiling were a rare occurrence. Paintings take hours or days to complete. Keeping up a convincing smile for that long is fairly difficult. Keeping a straight face is easier to paint than a face that changes all the time, so usually the decision was made to just keep the smile away. Another reason why smiles are rare on paintings was that they were often seen as vulgar and insulting. That doesn't mean that no smiles were ever painted. Many Dutch painters often incorporated smiles in their works as it made the common day life types of paintings more believable. The Renaissance painter Antonello da Messina painted the Smiling Man decades before the most well-known smiling painting, the Mona Lisa, was made by Leonardo da Vinci. While the Mona Lisa fits the description, I am not certain if this is the painting that is referenced. The actual painting is also a treasure that appears on the same maps as the sketch does. Referencing one object multiple times in different treasures happens sometimes, just like our next treasure on the list, which is a saber from the Light Brigade worth 80 coin, guarded by 2 brigands. Initially, when looking through the treasure list in the scenario editor, the name EU lightsaber piqued my interest. But it turns out not to be Star Wars related. Well, you had me fooled. Hope whoever on the dev team put that in is laughing right now. The Light Brigade was a contingent of cavalry during the Crimean War, which was fought between the Ottoman Empire, France, the United Kingdom on one side and Russia on the other. The Crimean War took place from 1853 to 1856. The Light Brigade, in an attempt to prevent the Russians from capturing guns from an overrun Ottoman position, were ordered to attack the heavy Russian defenses. This is referenced in the other treasure, scribbled orders for the Light Brigade worth 115 XP, guarded by 2 marauding Krabat. The charge was a misunderstood order from the commander, where they were supposed to charge a different, not as heavily fortified, position to gain the advantage. While some of the guns were saved, the British had high casualties. While the Russians would eventually be defeated and signed the Treaty of Paris, the charge of the Light Brigade is still one of the most disastrous cavalry charges in history. Lastly, we will look at the legendary jewel known as the Eye of Ornlu, worth 300 XP, guarded by the Beast of Givaudan. This treasure is different from the other discussed so far, as here we have not just a historical reference but a franchise reference as well. Starting off with the treasure guard, hovering over it gives you the tools tip, feared no sword and feared no gun. But I think there's something we haven't tried yet. Givaudan was a former province in France which between 1764 and 1767 was subject to many wolf attacks. People thought that these attacks were made by a single wolf or a small pack of wolves. Either way, the description of the beast was that it was massive and looked like a striped hyena or a wolf-dog hybrid. It would attack herders and their livestock. Eventually the attacks got so bad that King Louis XV ordered some of his dragoons to go and hunt it down. After several failed attempts, they eventually managed to take the beast down. The YouTube channel Extra History has a video describing the beast way better than I ever could, so if you are interested you can watch that video as well. The treasure name is a reference to Ornlu the Wolf, a hero animal that appears in several campaigns in Age of Empires 2. He has more HP and attack than regular wolves. Usually he's in the corner of a map having to be defeated for a bonus objective or guarding extra resources and occasionally a relic. A further nod to this is that in Age of Mythology there is a relic called Eye of Ornlu that is only available in the editor. In Age of Empires 3 the Beast of Gevaudan has higher stats than the regular beast, especially its attack speed as it attacks every second instead of every 1.5 seconds. Interestingly, the Beast of Gevaudan is a hero unit. This has the implications that it cannot be targeted by the sharpshooter ability from explorers, proving it to be a tough fight. However, the Chaos ability from the African Civ does affect the beast, and because that ability is based on the HP of the Guardian, it is stunned for a very long time. So for most Civs, despite it only being one Guardian, you're going to need a small force to deal with it and not just the Explorer. But there is a very easy way to deal with the beast. Because it is a hero unit, it takes bonus damage from spies, so a single spy can make short work of it. So that concludes our look at 8 different treasures and their references. I want to thank you for watching and hope you have a wonderful day.